Morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys. Wherever you are, Sean Maloney coming at you on 2113. If you're on, say hello. If you're watching the recording, let me know. Put in a hashtag replay, and we'll know that you're about and active in Team 113 because it's very important. In fact, it's getting increasingly important. I'm always one to say that, look, the sky's not falling in. We're not Chicken Little here. But as you probably are very aware, if you've been on this earth for any length of time, the world works in certain ways, okay? And no issue, as I've said before, and I'll always say, if you look back generation before us and a generation before that, you know, we live very well, particularly in first world countries. We have first world problems, but you know what most of us can relate to is based on first world issues, and we do okay. Those of you in other parts of the world, I fully understand that it's maybe a different kind of fish, and that's fine too. But the thing's relative. You know, we talk about here. What I'm going to talk about here is all relative to where you are in the world, particularly when you're dealing with assets that you actually physically own that are in your hand. Okay, so it's interesting, but I've titled this little chat, what do you own? And it doesn't matter where you are, it's a question that needs to be asked generally, you know, but as we go through what we're going through, if you understand, we're coming to the end of an epoch, a US dollar standard, if you will. The US dollar has been the foundation of global currency for many years now, and it's been morphed into SDRs and other types of global finance mechanisms, if you understand your monetary history. But fundamentally, everybody works on the basis that the US dollar underpins the forex. Okay, so no problem with that, but what it means is we're at the whim of large forces, okay, and those same large forces have given us standards of living. Don't get me wrong. You know, we have healthcare systems and social welfare systems, and we have clean streets and safe streets. We have lit streets. We have innovation. We have the power of what I'm talking to you on right now. All this has been born out of years and years and years of innovation and people pushing the boundaries of what humans are capable of, and that's no problem with that. However, there's a price. There's a price that will always have to be paid for the way that people are given an opportunity to live without having to live day to day looking to feed themselves. It was only 100 or so years ago that many of us, no matter what part of the world you're in, would have been out there right now farming the fields and being what's called sustenance living. We'd have had to go and find ways to grow our own crops and create our own ability to live life. That's obviously changed over the past 100 or so years, 200 years, because of industrialization and because of globalization and because of the ability to leverage systems and people and manufacturing and everything else, and that's fantastic. So that same benefit has led to a different dynamic, okay, in the way we work, which is fine, no issue with it. Like I say, the sky's not falling in. But the issue with when you look at it hard, as we are in 2019 going to 2020, is things are changing pretty quickly. We're not on a linear change, we're on exponential change, okay? So what I like to instinctively, many of us for years and years have understood, okay, so I've got a job, and I'm going to work that job, and that job's going to give me some income. And then my plan would be to take some of that income and maybe buy a house and bring up a family, and use that then maybe to go ahead and have the odd holiday and maybe have a car and try and get ourselves into a place that we'd like to live and put our kids through school and then put them through college. This is how life's mapped out in front of people. And again, it's fantastic. We're all very lucky that we were able to to think like that, and particularly as we live longer and are able to have more leisure time than previous generations. However, the things can get to a point where the ceiling is set, but everything's squashing up to a place where that becomes more and more challenging. And a classic example of that is the evolution of two parents going to work, for example, back in the 60s and 70s. That was an example of in order to keep that level, then more energy had to go down, as opposed to maybe one parent looking after the family and the other parent being able to bring in enough to live to this standard. Okay, and another example is that now even becoming too little of an income on average for people to be able to hit this level of perceived standard. So what do people start to do? Well, they start to look around for other opportunities and other ways to create more income. And a lot of people do that, obviously working second jobs. You've got all big gig economies coming through now. You've got short-term contracts. You've got all sorts of different ways that people try and compensate for the imbalance that's caused by the financial system that we currently have, the fiat system driven by the dollar, and they compensate for it by throwing more time and energy at a particular problem to try and hit this standard that they've been provided a vision of in their life, the time, and in the scope of life they have. So what do people do also? They tend to come into the online space. We're blessed these days that we can communicate the way I'm talking to you guys now, and that gives us other options to go ahead and create more income. So the question then becomes, okay, well, that's great. So we've got all these different ways to create more income into our life to hit this standard we're trying to achieve. But why? Why is there a need for more income? What's happening that means there isn't any chance of the income that we used to have, or an income of one person bringing it into the family, or an income of even two people bringing? Why is that changing? Why do we feel like we need more income? What's behind that? So my take on that in recent years has been, okay, that's interesting. So we have an ability to go out and earn. It's a free world. We can go and earn. We even have the backup of the banks and the governments and welfare and loan systems and monetary systems that can help us accelerate that if we want and do stuff. Obviously, there's always a price to pay. But why? What's the reason that income is changing? Well, simply it's because if you again go and do your own studies on this, you'll realize that the fiat system that has been in place since 1971, fully backed by the dollar, its only purpose is to be a debt-based system. That's what it is. That's what fiat is. And by definition of being debt-based, it has to fall in value. It must do. That's the way it is. It cannot do anything else. So that is your big explanation as to why you feel you need to go out there and earn more income. And that being the case, what's a more sensible thing to do? Is it more sensible to keep going out there and putting more hours in, doing more jobs, getting more overtime, spending less time with your family? Or is it more sensible to understand what you can do to counteract the fact that you need more income? And if you do decide to counteract it, how do you do it? What is it? What does it mean to counteract the fact that you've got less income to live life and therefore need to go out and get more income? What does it mean to counteract that? So those of you who know us in Team 113 and 50K Club and Digital Business Masters and all the other groups that you may hear this video on in our community, you get this now. You understand that it's not about going out chasing more income in isolation that will solve your problem. Yes, you can go and do that to your heart's content. But most importantly, it's about understanding why you need more income. And in that case, what are you going to do to counter and remedy the fact? In other words, how do you accumulate either extra income with no extra effort and energy? In other words, you turn yourself into a number of people by having assets work for you that come into your family pot. Or at the same time, you accrue assets that will provide you increased purchasing power, or at least the same purchasing power, into your future. Yeah? It's a very special thing to understand how you can actually do that. So many of us in these communities have a job, we create income, we create extra income through what we do with this incredible online space. Many people in these communities are network marketers, for example, or affiliate marketers, and they're out there helping people understand how to create more income. Fantastic, brilliant. But we also understand in these communities that isn't enough. You have to also learn how to create income producing assets, and you also have to learn how to hold and own assets that will protect your purchasing power. Okay, so I'll list down there a number of things that you might want to think about in terms of what I'm talking about here. Is what do you own? Do you own the home you're in right now and the land that it sits on? Do you own that? Really own that? Do you own a car? Do you actually own the car sat on your driveway? Do you own the currency that's in your bank account? Do you actually own it? Is it yours? Have you got it in your hand? Do you own the pension and its ability to pay you in older age? Is that in your hand? Is that guaranteed? Will that pension actually 100% guarantee pay you in your older age? Do you own any stocks and shares? Do you actually own them? Are they really owned by you? When you go to that broker or that financial advisor and they're pushing you into these markets, do you actually own the value? Is it something you hold? Do you own the value in any annuity or insurance policy? Do you actually physically own it? Is it actually guaranteed, if push comes to shove, to be in your hand? Is it cast iron? And last but not least, do you actually own the assurance, the guarantee, the no questions asked that your boss will pay you next month? Do you own that? These are just some of the questions that it's worth asking. Again, not to frighten people, not to say the sky's falling in, not to say what you're doing is wrong. It's not. It comes back to the point about being 100% reliant on a boss, a bank, or a government, and being 100% reliant on an income that pays you in a devaluing way. Is it right to be 100% reliant in your life on those things? Is that a sensible place to be? And if it's the first time you've ever had that question asked, then that's because that's all you've been ever taught. And that's fine too. Millions of people on this planet are only ever taught to have faith in something else and somebody else, mainly governments and bosses and banks, frankly. The time's coming, though, to question whether that serves you. In the near term, as I said earlier, why are you finding yourself having to chase more income? Why is 2 people in your household not enough? Why is the energy of those 2 people not enough to make sure you've got more monthly money? Why even now do we have 2 people in households working multiple jobs? And why are we finding more and more people coming into this online space to try and create more income? Why? Well, as I've said, it's because of the falling value of the dollar-based fiat system. It's inevitable. It has to be that your currency falls in value. And people say, oh, it's inflation. It's normal. 2% a year, 2.5% a year, it's normal. Prices go up, it's normal. It isn't normal. You go back 10 years and have a look at your average pay increase in percentage terms, and then you go back 10 years and have a look at the inflation. And that's the recorded stated inflation, don't forget. Most of you in our communities will probably be shuffling in your seats thinking, yeah, 2.5% sounds a bit low to me. And that isn't an accident. Many of us who are over 40 in these groups these days will remember 2008, will remember 2000, will remember 1990. We know exactly what's happened since 2008. The whole thing's accelerated in terms of inflation. So the take home here, guys, is question what you really own and develop what you understand. So have a real good look at that list I put up there, and there's hundreds of other things you could ask yourself about what you actually own. But in the bottom line is you actually having something in your hand that you actually own, okay? That's the only thing you can ever own. You might see governments and legislators and legal people and banks and everybody being nicey in the sense of, oh no, they can't let that happen. The laws don't allow. The government would never let that happen. The banks can't do that. My boss would never do that to me. Well, maybe not. But are you absolutely 100% sure about that? And if the governments and the banks and the bosses of this world were not to let certain things happen, how come you and your other half are having to chase more income? Why are you even in this online space? What's the reason you're here in the first place? To make new friends? The whole point of this is to question, hang on, oh, well, something's not right. Something needs to shift. Now, nobody will change it for you. You have to change it for yourself. So what we do in 2113 and DBM and all these other groups you may hear this video on is we provide education in spades every single day about people's financial awareness. And as a result of that financial awareness, people wake up and they realize, ah, you're right, I do not own what I thought I owned. The big one is when people realize they don't actually own the currency in their own bank account. And then they start to question, if that's the case, then maybe I need to be smarter. Maybe I need to go and do my research. Maybe I need to go and understand what it is I need to own, not just to improve my position in my life in the next couple of years, but most of all to improve my purchasing power in years to come. It's in years to come that the chickens will come home to roost. You just have to go and ask anybody over 60 today what their position was 20 years ago. Many people have to find themselves in a place where they're having to carry on working. Why is that? Especially with the expectation they were given all through their working life that they would be able to start working. I'm in that position today in my 40s, looking at my next 20 years working life. Have I got any confidence that any of these things listed down on that side of that screen will give me absolute guarantee that I'm going to be comfortable? Not a chance. Not a chance. So therefore, I will take control and I will own things that give me that guarantee. And most of all, I'll get the knowledge to make sure that I'm a step ahead. Yeah. So ask yourself what you own. Think about why you're finding yourself having to create more income in your life. And instead of chasing it, get the financial education that means that you can do two main things. Split yourself into an army, in other words, of income producing asset entities. Get onto the right hand side of that cash flow quadrant, number one. Number two, make sure that what you are accumulating in that asset position is assured to protect your purchasing power. And you'll find there are very, very few assets on this world that can do that. Very, very few. It's those you need to be holding. Just, by the way, as has been the case for thousands of years by kings, queens, churches, governments, banks. They've always held gold. Always. And there's a reason for that. So why should it be their privilege and not ours? So think about that, guys. Don't chase income. Create income. But most of all, create assets that also create you income that protects your purchasing power in the future. It can be that simple. And you'll put yourself into such a more comfortable, assured, confident, capable place, in my experience. It's such a different way to look at things than always be questioning what you actually own, especially if you're employed. And frankly, especially if you're employed in the public sector, because there is absolutely no guarantee in terms of where your next 5 to 10 years will look. Are closely followed by the banks and pension companies, based on stock markets, based on derivatives, by the way. And if you don't know what derivatives are, go and research that and just realize how new those damn things are and the damage they've done. And if that doesn't frighten you into getting something done, I don't know what will. You do that. And last but not least, don't be reliant on the government. We've seen what they're capable of. In Greece, in Cyprus, in Zimbabwe, in Venezuela, and these are all places, oh, that'll never happen here. I wouldn't be too surprised. There has to be a balance, yeah? Governments are fantastic at holding what they're supposed to do, which is to administer society. They're not supposed to run it. Governments are not a business. Governments are administrators. So think about that, guys. Again, like I say, the sky's not falling in. I'm not here to frighten you, but I just want to keep prompting the questions so that you can empower yourself to take control in your financial lives and your financial futures. Have a look at those questions. Any thoughts, pop them in. Good to see you, John, Julian, Joanne, Andy. Good to see you, buddy. Quick and sweet. Just a quick mention. If you're watching this live, Shimen and I are going live this afternoon in about, what time is it now? On about 3 hours on a Golden Nuggets call on 2113. So you're more than welcome to join us for that. And we'll be discussing more of these wider topics when it comes to how we work very hard in T113 and beyond to provide people with access to financial education that empowers them. So good to see you guys, and I'll catch you on the next video.